What if CORVIKNIGHT was in Gen 1 OU? Now starting off, we have a Steel type. These are famously pretty good in Gen 1. They end up resisting Psychic, Steel, and Ice, the three most common attacking types in the game. Now that's pretty good, but one of their main weaknesses is that they're weak to Earthquake, which is probably the fourth most attacking type in the game. Oh wait, this is just a flying type as well. You're trading your ice resistance for ground immunity. You know what? Y'all? I'm gonna say that is a pretty damn good trade. But that might just be me. I might be a weirdo here. Along with that, you just have incredibly bulky stats. Now with that defense... I feel like for the most part, you wish out some special defense instead. Because you resist normal. You're immune to ground. So what's left? You resist flying, but like, I'm telling you right now, drill pigs are not going to be your enemy. There's, I guess, pin missile, which your quad resist, and there's rock slide. For the most part, none of that stuff you really care about. But even then, 85 special defense is not bad. That's higher than Tauros' special. And that's not the only thing that's above average. Your speed is a lot better than it should be. At 67, you're outspeeding Chansey, Executor, Slowbro, Rhydon, Snorlax. Most of those don't really matter too much. It's kind of unfortunate though, because you're 3 points behind Cloyster. At the same time, Cloyster is not really like the main thing you're scared of. Because even though it's not going to be listed here in the 4 moves, there's only 5 moves that are just really good for it. And the last one is Light Screen. And with Light Screen, Cloyster isn't really that bad. So the typing is amazing. And the attack and HP are also pretty good for the time. Especially with Stab Drill Peck. It's just a pretty good move to have. But even then, it's not that bad no matter what. Even if it had a bad attack stat, it doesn't matter. This is one of the strongest defensive types in the entire game. Theoretically speaking. So, you could be doing no damage at all, but you have such a great typing that you're still getting stuff accomplished. Drill Peck is already a great stab move, and then Body Slam for Fishing Paralysis? Believe me, you are getting those opportunities to get that paralysis off. So that's already great. And then you have Rest. Because you're already super tanky, you might as well just get that HP back. Now the last move is either Leer or Light Screen, and with these replays, and there's 19 of them, so trust me, you're going to be seeing a lot of examples of both. But both are really good in their own ways. Leer is just good for just quickening things up, especially for already weak defense Pokemon. For stuff like Chansey and Alakazam, you already hit pretty hard, but instead of them wasting your resources by them spamming Leer, or not Leer, by spamming Soft Boiled, or Recover, or with both of them doing good chip damage with Seismic Toss, going for Leer just kind of makes them, they kind of have to switch out, because if they don't, suddenly you can just stall them out over time. It's also good for Rhydon. Since Rhydon resists both of your main attacking moves, or your only attacking moves really, since Hyper Beam is not very good on this thing, you using Leer can kind of make that match a little more even, which I know sounds weird, but most Rhydon sets, they're either using Leer with Body Slam or Rock Slide. Without Leer, Drill Peck and Body Slam do, they do good damage, but Rhydon can substitute. And with Rock Slide, it can eventually chip it down, and Leer's the made sound. Once CORVIKNIGHT is at the lowest defense it could be, Body Slam does do decent damage. So Leer can help you fight back against Rhydon in those instances. Although it is worth mentioning you do have Rest, which is pretty good. Rhydon doesn't really use that. But if you're not using Leer for those, it's also just doing genuinely more, or generally more damage against stuff like Tauros, or anything really. For the most part, you're sending this out against Pokemon that just can't touch it at all. It will switch to something else, you go for a Leer, and then suddenly your Drill Pecks and Body Slams are doing a little bit more damage, which is always pretty nice. But if you're not using that, you're using a Light Screen. Now, 85 special is already pretty good, but with widescreen, moves that would do decent damage to you in the past, such as Blizzard, are now just doing nothing. And Thunderbolt, which is by far your main weakness, is nullified-ish. It really depends on which mons you're using. Just spoiler alert, Zapdos, Jolteon, widescreen ain't helping you. It is not helping you against Gengar either. Gengar already 2 KOs you, so with a widescreen, it's just doing a 4th, so it can just kind of beat rest. Especially since it, is a Gengar, it has a great crit rate. But against things like Starmie and Tauros, they can help you survive. But with those guys, you still have to watch out for crits. Although for Tauros' case, I'm going to say it doesn't make that much of a difference. And that's because even though crits with Tauros are pretty likely, at the same time, Corviknight here forces Tauros to use Blizz Bolt. That makes Gengar better, which kind of hurts for Corviknight. But how many times have I made a video where Tauros needs to adapt? When was the last time Tauros needed to adapt or something? But Corviknight here is such a big threat and beats regular Tauros so hard that Tauros would need to start using Thunderbolt way more often. Yeah, that's a big deal. A really big deal. And even with crits, with widescreen, Thunderbolt's not doing that much anyways. So Corviknight, there might be a decent chance to argue Corviknight having a great matchup against Tauros. Because even with crits, you're getting some drill picks off. You're getting free chip damage against Tauros, which is very valuable. This guy is great. A long time ago, I did a video on Skarmory. In that one, I only looked at Skarmory defensively with just pairing it with Chansey, Rhydon, and Cloyster. But now, I need to do a revisit on Skarmory at some point. Because even though I knew it was good, especially defensively, I don't think I really grasped just how powerful a Flying Steel type really is. So, Corviknight here absolutely would be great in OU. Might even one of the better Pokemon. Easily top 5 in my opinion. This thing is just so centralizing in so many ways, despite not being a huge offensive presence. And, fun fact, for those of you who don't know, I host tournaments based on my What If videos in my Discord server. And I have not played it much myself, but Corviknight is the main Pokemon I've heard talked about for the Halloween Jumble. This is the same Jumble that has Pokemon like Mimikyu, Grimmsnarl, Delphox, Skeledirge. It also has, I believe, Runerigas and some other Pokemon. And Corviknight here, for what I've heard, it's centralizing the meta, I think, around it. Apparently the big 3 are falling off, especially for Snorlax's case, where it's being knocked down to a top 6 Pokemon. That's mostly because of Corviknight here. Corviknight is just so good, and even when you add more Pokemon and even better fire types, it still stays one of the best Pokemon in the format. Now, I need to finish the rest of the Halloween Jumble before I play some myself, but in my server right now, you can just ask and someone will play a game with you. And on October, we are having a tournament, so please, join the Discord server so that you can participate in this yourself. It'd be a lot of fun. Not to mention, you should, subscribe. I'd appreciate it. I try to do these videos daily, and sometimes I'll upload more than once, such as today. I already uploaded a Mimikyu video today, but I was still in the mood, so here's Corviknight. But that's about it. So let's get right into the replays, shall we? Starting off with the boy himself, we got Tauros, and that's without widescreen. Without widescreen, that's how much Blizzard is doing, just 20%, give or take. That's already really good, and Corviknight has rest. And with the Weir too, it already does a 3rd with Drill Peck. The Tauros Tauros here is just not winning. Even if it does win with a freeze or crit, with chip damage and a defense drop, the enemy Tauros is beating you so hard. So this is already a great example of just Corviknight just being Corviknight. It's a big bird, and in this instance, it's also stalling out Tauros' Blizzard PP, so it just whizzes the Rhydon as well. It's amazing. And here's the Tauros with Thunderbolt. It does better, but even then, with only 70 special, Thunderbolt for Tauros only did a third. So I had in the tier list, I have it as a good matchup, not a great, and that's only because of crits. But looking at it again, I think there is just a genuine argument for Tauros being a great matchup and not a good matchup, because it hits so hard. And even though Corviknight lost in this one, that might have just been me being greedy. Because before I went for the drill pack, I felt like maybe I should have went for rest just to play around the crit rate. But I don't think it matters, because let's pause this actually real quick. Even with it getting crit, Tauros is still at half health. It's losing to an enemy Tauros easily. So that's Tauros. Here's Snorlax, and this is a purely only normal hitting Snorlax, which ironically is better than just using like 3 normal moves and what's it called, Earthquake. I don't think I need to explain this really. What is Snorlax doing here with a high defense steel type Pokemon? And I guess in this instance, having this high defense is good. It's also good since being a resist, you are in fact switching into explosions. So now that I think about it, I don't think you really regret having that high defense over special defense. I think it's doing its job perfectly. But what about Amnesia Wax? This is actually one that you guys need to explain to me about, because when I was making these replays, I thought, okay, Snorlax is just a quick way either way, because if it's Physical Wax, Corviknight demolishes. If it's Amnesia Wax, then in that case, I figured you're not using just Ice Beam and Body Slam anymore. If you're using Amnesia Wax, it has to be Bolt Beam. And I assume, even with Light Screen, this is pretty good for Snorlax. But if Snorlax is falling up so hard in Generation Jumble that it's now only a top 6 Pokemon at best, why is Amnesia Wax just not catching on? I'm gonna need you guys to explain this in the comments, because I don't really see what's wrong here. I feel like Corviknight's good, but I'm failing to see why it's so good that the big 3 is falling off. Tauros seems like most people still say is one of the best Pokemon, but even Chansey, people are saying is falling off. For the most part, I think it's still top 3, but people are saying it's not mandatory anymore. I just don't get that with the roster we've added. I am so confused. But a lot of that's because I haven't really got to, experience the format myself. But you guys have, or you will be once you join the Discord link, which is in the description of this video. So, you guys have to explain that. But for now, I'm keeping Snorlax and could go either way, depending on the set, because that's just how I see it. I don't know. And here's Chansey, and even without any Leers, Drill Peck's already like a third, which is pretty good. With a single Leer, Drill Peck becomes a 2-hit KO, which is that is so great. And it's very nice that you don't need like a full-on sword stance in order to be amazing. But this here is why you should consider Leer, because I know it definitely looks like Light Screen is objectively the better choice, but it really depends on what you're trying to do with your Corviknight and what you're trying to counter. Both moves are still pretty good no matter what you face, but for Corviknight here, if it goes for Leer, Chansey is it has to switch out because it just takes too much damage from Drill Peck. Even in a best case scenario where Corviknight's paralyzed and stuff like that, you kill with Seismic Toss, you're probably taking significant damage. And this is a Pokemon that isn't even hitting the hardest. Imagine a defense shot from Chansey, but you switch in the Rhydon or Snorlax or Tauros. Chansey isn't standing a chance. So that's where Leer comes in. And Light Screen is good against, let's say, Bolt Beam Chansey. And I'm not even sure if Bolt Beam Chansey would become more common than usual, because Light Screen is just as common as Leer. So is it even worth the Light Screen or Thunderbolt at that point? I honestly don't know. Granted, Corviknight isn't killing Chansey as fast, so there's always the chance that Chansey could get lucky with a crit. But are you going to rely on that? Probably not, since Corviknight here is definitely doing damage to Chansey and wasting Chansey's resources. It needs a lucky crit, and that might not happen. But once again, just like with a Snorlax, I'm even more confused on how Chansey's falling off. Now, granted, it seems like most people still say it is one of the best Pokemon, so I'm not as confused, since it still sounds like Chansey is mostly doing the things it should be doing, and nothing else is really replicating it. But still, there's a lot of questions I have, and it does make me excited to actually make Halloween Jumble videos, even on Generation Jumble typically doesn't do that well. But so far, for a season that was really rushed last minute because we forgot it was getting close to Halloween, so far it's having the most interesting results. And I'm very fascinated that a Jumble we just came up with aesthetically is somehow doing bigger changes than like the Season 2 Jumble, where we tried buffing types to make the meta change in a significant way. It's funny how it's always the things that happen on accident, you know. Those are the ones that, like, those always happen over the ones you plan, huh? I don't know what I'm babbling about at this point. Here's Alakazam versus Corviknight. Paralysis is nice, but this is literally why you have Body Slam. And look at that. With just one Leer, Body Slam is not a 2 KO, but Dropeg definitely is. We don't even need to go for that. I think you'd rather just go for Paralysis. And once you do get that Paralysis, yeah, Zam is in a lot of trouble. I argue it was in trouble in general. Because Corviknight here, yeah, with Leer it becomes faster too. So, being able to 2 KO Chansey and Zam consistently with Leer, hopefully those two replays alone are enough to tell you that Leer and Light Screen are equally valuable. I'm assuming most people would rather go for Light Screen, but for me personally, anyone who's seen my channel before or just knows me personally knows I always prefer the more offensive strategies, so I'll probably be going for Leer. Just don't remember I said that once I go over the once the tournament starts, alright? Now with Leer, I don't think it's doing that much more against Cloyster. Cloyster with Blizzard honestly hits pretty hard for hit KOing you, so Corviknight's not doing a lot there. With Leer, however, with the Light Screen, it is a very, very different story. Since with the Light Screen, you are just... let's be real, you can just eat up the Blizzard power points very quickly. And only a crit or freeze is what you're really scared of. So, does this mean that Light Screen is objectively the best move you should be using? I think it's a very big contender as to yes. But at the same time, with Light Screen here, you are stalling out the Cloyster. But Light Screen is useless against Seismic Toss Chansey and Alakazam with Seismic Toss. So with those, you're not stalling them out anywhere near as well as you would be. Not to mention just in general, like you're not hitting as hard. So, even though this move single-handedly changes the Cloyster matchup, at the same time, you could always just paralyze Cloyster with something else, or have something else bred in it. So no, I don't think Light Screen is objectively better than Leer. If you ask me, I feel like, if anything, I feel like Leer is the one that ends up putting more pressure and gets more things accomplished. But both are good, and I just can't deny that. And for Cloyster here, it definitely does hate one more than the other. But once again, like I say in most of these videos, these 1v1s are not accurate representations of how things would actually be in a meta. That's part of the reason why I host tournaments. Because in a 6v6 environment, like, you can use something else to handle the Cloyster and Corviknight here. So, like, you wouldn't even have these two fight each other since both are being murdered by Jolteon and Zapdos. Speaking of which, I've also heard that Zapdos isn't doing as well as it usually does, but Jolteon has also just been really popping off. If I had to guess, I'm assuming just the better crit rate has to be the reason Jolteon's being used. Because I can't think of anything that Zapdos particularly hates. So, that's just another thing to be interested in. The Gen 1 meta is just so different to the point where even I'm confused. I didn't plan for this either. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, the replay is still going on. This ends up being like a 60+ turn replay. So I guess I'll just take this time to remind you guys that I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support that. Obviously, I do these videos for free no matter what. Which is a little thing that just, you know, helps if you want. And anything else I can say about Cloyster versus Corviknight? I guess I am interested for you guys to let me know in the comments if you think Corviknight or Skarmory is better. I don't think Skarmory gets Sword Stance in Gen 1. I know it gets in other gens, but I don't know. Is Skarmory just a worse version of Corviknight? I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't tell you. But I really hope that's not the case, since Corviknight is... Or not Corviknight, Skarmory is always my favorite Pokemon of all time. And oh my gosh, this replay is still going. And it's on fast, too. Honestly, this right here is probably why Light Screen isn't objectively better. Because sure, you are beating Cloyster, but look how many resources you're having to waste. Look how many, like, Body Slams and Drill Pecks and Rest you have left. So, like, maybe I'm just being biased since I always prefer offensive strategies. But there you go. Finally, we're moving on to the next one. Alright, let's do this. And it's Executor. Don't worry, this replay will go by a lot faster. Drill Peck has a consistent 3-hit KO, but doesn't matter. Explosion, Mega Drain, Psychic, Double Edge, none of these are doing anything to Corviknight. Executor is always twitching out, which means Corviknight gets a free chance to set up Light Screen or get Leer, so it's hitting whatever is being sent out a little bit harder. So Executor, I would imagine it's not doing that great in the Halloween Jumble, especially if you have other really strong fire types as well. And Gengar here, like I said in the preview, it's just beating Corviknight no matter what. Leer and Drill Peck would theoretically hurt, but Corviknight's just not getting that chance to do anything offensively. Light Screen isn't enough because Gengar just hits hard anyways or has a really great crit rate. And what I said about Gengar applies here, but like 10 times worse. You're just not winning against Jolteon whatsoever. I don't think anyone's surprised to hear that. Also, I'll just say it now, I didn't bother making a Victory Bell replay, but I did make a Jinx replay. And Jinx here, I think it really just depends on if you get that paralysis. Because even without any Leers, you hit pretty hard with a 3-hit KO. So whether or not you paralyze Jinx, I think is what really determines the fight. Technically, crits do as well. But for the most part, I feel like Corviknight and Jinx aren't even facing each other. One is a like lead, and the other one is... Honestly, we don't really have a Pokemon like Corviknight. Because even Rhydon, along with being a tank, is also just used as a late game win con. Same with Slowbro. Speaking of Rhydon, and I swear to God, for once that wasn't actually intentional. That was just a coincidence. Now for this replay in particular, I did forget to use Rest. But also at the same time, Rhydon did do pretty good here. But as you can see, Corviknight was just really getting unlucky without those paralysis. So take this replay with a grain of salt, since in other contexts, Corviknight could be going for Leer a lot sooner, which is a big deal. But both of them annoying each other to hit with resistant moves is really funny. But for the most part, I'm not sure if there's anything else I can really add here. Both can threaten each other, and I guess Corviknight has a bit of an edge, just because of Rest, and also because it has Stab that it's using. And technically, I guess Rhydon could have also fished for Paralysis before going for Leer. So maybe I should have just remade this replay. But I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. You get the idea how it works. And technically, I guess you could use Leer and Rock Slide. That would do significantly better. But at the same time, you're really using Rock Slide just to do a little bit better against Corviknight. At that point, I think it's better just using a different Pokemon. It's I feel like using a different Pokemon is hard, because Jolteon and Zapdos are just good either way. So, it's not like you need to use a niche Pokemon. But speaking of niche, maybe that isn't exactly how you should describe Slowbro, but this is like one of the Pokemon that is doing pretty good against Corviknight. For what I've heard, it's been having a rise for Halloween Jumble, and I guess that makes sense. If Corviknight's everywhere, then Slowbro can just easily set up against it. With those defense drops, it will struggle against other physical attackers, but at the same time, for those defense drops, it means Slowbro's probably already setting up, which means other physical attackers probably don't have what it takes to kill it, which means you could hit really hard with a max special Surf. But Corviknight with Lucky Paralysis, as well as some defense drops, could seriously threaten Slowbro. So it's gonna be ironic. You're gonna see a replay here with the Light Screen, but I honestly am feeling like Leer is better. Which I know sounds crazy, since with light screen you're actually surviving one extra hit. But I don't think that's what matters. It's not the amount of turns, it's just what you do with them, you know? And with Leer, CORVIKNIGHT's always doing something where other mons can finish off the Slowbro. With a few Leers and some drill packs, suddenly Tauros can do something, forcing Slowbro to switch out, or not Tauros, Slowbro. Forcing Slowbro to switch out, or to just accept getting killed. So you can disagree with me if you want, but I don't know. I just feel like Leer is a little bit better here. Like I said, I didn't bother with Victory Bell. I know I promised you guys I would do videos, like modern videos, I will do replays for everything. But did I really need to show you quad resisted Razor Leaf and then Victory Bell being demolished by Drill Peck? I don't think I did. But I do think I need to show Starmie with Thunderbolt. Obviously, Thunderbolt isn't always on Starmie. But I feel like, because of CORVIKNIGHT, just like how Blizzball Tauros might be forced to become the norm, that's the same thing for Starmie here. Except for Starmie, it's even better, since Blizzball Starmie is just really good in general. And plus, you're not really suffering too much from not using Psychic or Surf anymore. Those are just, or mostly Psychic is a good option anyways. But Blizzball was already the best set by far, so it just becomes even better. And last, but most certainly least, in terms of how effective CORVIKNIGHT is fighting against Zapdos. And I don't think I need to explain to you just how unbelievably unwinnable this is. CORVIKNIGHT is not doing anything, but in spite of that, I feel like making this replay was still more worthwhile than doing mine with Victory Bell. I swear to God, I don't actually hate Victory Bell, it just underperforms so much, it's hilarious. But here's the tier list. Now, depending on what you guys say, something like Tauros might move to great matchups or could go either way. Same thing with like Snorlax. But just look at the tier list now. It's pretty balanced. And even though there's not a lot of things in great and good matchups compared to some other overpowered Pokemon, just look at the tier list. Yeah, I can see the entire meta forming around this. But what do you think? Do you think CORVIKNIGHT would be really great in Gen 1 OU? Do you think it's going to be great in Halloween Jumble? Or do you think at the moment people are just going over new toys syndrome? Let me know in the comments below. And please join the server. I'd love to have you. We do other things other than just play Pokemon as well. There's always someone willing to have a conversation with you. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.